It was a clear summer afternoon deep in the Grand Canyon, one of the most remote and majestic places in America. 22-year-old Morgan Heimer, a river guide trainee, was wrapping up a routine stop along the Colorado River with a small group of tourists. He told a fellow guide he was going to take a short walk near the water's edge. He was wearing a life vest. No backpack, no gear, no known injuries. And then he simply vanished. He didn't cry out for help. He wasn't seen climbing, swimming, or falling. One moment he was standing by the river, and the next, he was gone. It's been nearly a decade, and despite one of the most extensive searches ever launched in Grand Canyon National Park, not a single trace of Morgan has ever been found. This is the story of a young man who disappeared in plain sight, and the lingering mystery that still surrounds his final steps. Morgan Heimer was the kind of person who made an impression without even trying. Raised in Wyoming, he had that quiet, deliberate confidence so common among those who grow up close to nature. His friends described him as kind, thoughtful, and deeply intelligent, someone who paid attention to the world around him, even when no one else did. He had studied English and creative writing at the University of Wyoming and had a natural love for the outdoors. It made sense that he gravitated toward work that allowed him to stay close to wild places where the usual noise of life faded and only the essentials remained. By 2015, Morgan had taken a job with Tour West, a rafting company that ran expeditions down the Colorado River. That June, he was working as a swamper, a kind of apprentice guide. His role was to assist senior guides on multi-day river trips through the Grand Canyon, hauling gear, setting up camp, helping guests, and learning the ropes. By all accounts, Morgan was good at what he did. Calm under pressure, reliable, comfortable on the water. He was 6 days into a week-long trip when everything changed. On June 2nd, 2015, Morgan's tour group had stopped at a remote location known as Pumpkin Springs, near River Mile 213. It's an iconic spot, a warm, mineral-rich pool that trickles over a cliff edge into the river below. The area is striking but also treacherous, with uneven terrain and steep drops. Around 3 p.m., the guests were enjoying some downtime along the shore. Morgan was seen helping one of the lead guides manage a few logistics. He was wearing flip-flops, a red life vest, and blue board shorts. Nothing unusual. He then told the guide he was going to take a short walk. That was the last time anyone ever saw him. At first, no one realized anything was wrong. The group was scattered, people were relaxing, and it wasn't unusual for a crew member to step away for a few moments. But when Morgan didn't return and didn't respond to calls, the concern began to build. Within an hour, the group knew something wasn't right. They searched the immediate area, then the shoreline, then the trails. But Morgan was nowhere to be found. And in the Grand Canyon, even a small delay can mean big consequences. By that evening, the National Park Service had been notified. A full-scale search began the next morning. The search effort for Morgan Heimer was massive. Over the course of 6 days, helicopters scoured the area from above. Ground teams combed the steep and dangerous terrain surrounding the river. Boats searched the water, shore to shore, but no footprints, no clothing, no sign of a fall. Not a single personal item was recovered. What made it even more confounding was the nature of the location. The area where Morgan disappeared isn't one of those vast open canyon spaces where a person could walk miles unnoticed. It's boxed in, limited trails, cliffs on either side, the river at your back. Even if Morgan had decided to leave intentionally, something no one who knew him believes, he would have had to climb dangerous rock faces, hike through scorching conditions without supplies, or swim against a swift and cold current. And he wasn't dressed for any of that. Still, every possibility was considered. Could he have suffered a medical emergency? Been swept away? Gotten lost? Or had something else happened? Something quieter? Something far more elusive? As the days dragged on, hope began to thin. Morgan's family, who had rushed to the scene as soon as they heard the news, struggled with the growing silence. They described him as level-headed, not someone prone to risk or emotional extremes. There were no known mental health issues, no troubling history, no behavior leading up to the trip that suggested he was struggling. He had plans for the future. He was talking about graduate school. He was scheduled to return home in just a few days. Nothing about his actions pointed to someone looking to disappear. And yet, he did. To this day, Morgan Heimer remains one of the most puzzling missing person cases in national park history. No foul play has ever been confirmed, but many have quietly wondered, was there something unseen that day? Something unspoken? Could he have been injured and hidden in the terrain, just out of reach? Could he have fallen into the river, his body carried far downstream before searchers even had a chance to look? Or did someone else play a role? Someone on the trip or nearby who has never come forward? The people who were there that day, guests and crew, have all been interviewed multiple times. Nothing suspicious has ever been confirmed, but the absence of answers is, in itself, its own kind of presence. In the years since Morgan disappeared, his family has kept his story alive. They've shared memories of his warmth, his intelligence, and his gentle way of moving through the world. They've spoken publicly about the need for better safety protocols and quicker response times in remote park areas. They've also left space for the unknown, for the reality that some questions may never be answered. Because as strange as it may sound, people do vanish in national parks. And not just in the wilderness either, but in moments of complete normalcy, sometimes in full view of others, sometimes with no sign of distress. And when it happens, it reminds us just how fragile our connection is to the ground beneath our feet, how little control we have when nature or fate decides to shift the script. There's something deeply haunting about the idea of someone simply vanishing. Not through force, not in a storm, not in chaos, but quietly. A young man walking alongside a river in the middle of a bright, ordinary day, and then gone. No screams, no struggle, no evidence, just absence. The story of Morgan Heimer isn't just about a missing person. It's about the limits of what we can know, about the thin line between presence and disappearance, about how the wilderness, even when mapped and measured, can still hold secrets. Maybe that's why this case stays with people, why it lingers. Because it reminds us that even in our most beautiful places, even among people we trust, the unexplainable can still find a way in. If you've ever been to the Grand Canyon, you know how vast and silent it can feel. It's the kind of place that humbles you, makes you feel small, makes you listen harder, and maybe, just maybe, that's what we need now. To keep listening, because someone somewhere may know something, a detail they forgot, a sighting they brushed off, a moment that didn't seem important until now. If you have any information about the disappearance of Morgan Heimer, no matter how minor, it could make a difference. Please contact the National Park Service or the appropriate authorities. And if you've been following this story, if it stayed with you, leave a comment. What do you think happened that day along the Colorado River? Was it nature or something else? It was a searing June afternoon in one of the most unforgiving landscapes in America, the western reaches of Grand Canyon National Park. Beneath a vast, empty sky, 52-year-old Floyd E. Roberts III disappeared without a trace. No sound, no signal, no footprints in the sand, just the crushing silence of red rock canyons and the mystery of a man who should have made it back, but didn't. He wasn't a reckless adventurer. He wasn't a novice to the outdoors. Floyd was a careful, experienced hiker, someone who knew the rules, respected the land, and had planned accordingly. And yet, in just a few short hours, he would vanish into the desert and leave behind one of the most baffling disappearances the Grand Canyon has ever seen. Floyd Roberts was a seasoned outdoorsman. He'd worked for NASA in his younger years, a detail that often surprises people. But for those who knew him best, it made perfect sense. He was a man of detail, curious, calm, methodical. Someone who could look at a map for hours, planning each step of a trail, calculating water needs, anticipating conditions. He wasn't just prepared, he was deliberate. And so when he joined a small group to hike the Grand Canyon's western region in the summer of 2016, no one expected things to go wrong. The group included two of his longtime friends, a man and a woman, both with extensive hiking backgrounds. Their plan was ambitious: a remote, multi-day off-trail hike into an area of the canyon far from tourist paths, known for its breathtaking views and isolation. This wasn't a loop you could casually stumble into. It required permits, logistical planning, water caching, and a physical resilience most people don't have. On June 17, 2016, they were about 2 days into their trek. The The group had descended from the rim, traversing canyons and ridgelines under blistering desert heat. Temperatures had soared past 110 degrees Fahrenheit. At a place called Kelly Tank, a dry water collection basin surrounded by rock formations, the trio made camp and prepared to split up temporarily. Floyd wanted to explore a nearby ridge, a short walk from their location. It wasn't unusual. He often took side hikes to explore rock art, study the terrain, or take photographs. He wasn't carrying much, just a day pack, a bottle of water, his camera, enough for a short walk in and back. He told his companions he'd return within an hour or two. That was the last time anyone saw him. At first, they weren't alarmed. It wasn't uncommon for hikers to return late from a detour, especially someone like Floyd, who could easily get absorbed in the landscape. But as dusk settled in and temperatures dropped, concern began to grow. They waited, shouted his name, checked surrounding hills. Nothing. The next morning, they activated the emergency beacon. Within hours, search and rescue crews were dispatched. Helicopters flew low over ridges. Ground teams scoured narrow canyons and dry washes. Thermal imaging was deployed. Rangers and volunteers, some of whom had worked hundreds of search operations, joined the effort. But they were baffled. There were no signs of Floyd, no trail, no discarded gear, no signal from his pack. And here's where the story turns from tragic to unsettling. Search teams expected to find something, even if it was just a trail of disturbed brush or a dropped water bottle. But the terrain yielded nothing. Floyd had disappeared into what they called a clean vanish, a term used when even the smallest trace is missing. Not a boot print, not a shred of clothing. Nothing. Some began to suspect that he might have fallen into a crevice or hidden wash, one of the many that snake through the canyon and vanish beneath the surface. But again, nothing turned up. Others wondered if heat stroke or dehydration had disoriented him, leading him far from the planned route. Still, even in that scenario, there should have been something, a trace. But the desert remained silent. Floyd's family was devastated. They flew out from across the country, organizing private search efforts alongside the official ones. Friends and strangers alike combed satellite imagery, looking for clues. A GoFundMe campaign was launched to support extended rescue operations. But weeks passed. The helicopters left. The teams returned home. And Floyd's name was quietly added to the list of missing persons in Grand Canyon National Park. But that's not the end of his story. Because it's not just the disappearance that unsettles people. It's the context. Floyd went missing in an area few people visit, where cell service is non-existent, and rescue is often hours away. The weather was punishing, the terrain dangerous, but he was prepared. He knew what he was walking into. And yet, he vanished more completely than someone who had never set foot in the canyon. Some believe he fell and became wedged in a narrow slot, shielded from aerial view. Others believe he became disoriented, wandered in the wrong direction, and succumbed to heat. But none of these explanations account for the complete lack of evidence. No gear, no scent trail for dogs, no heat signature, nothing. There are, of course, more speculative theories. Some wonder if he chose to disappear, though those who knew him dismiss this. Floyd was deeply connected to his family. He was not in crisis. His life, by all accounts, was stable and happy. Others hint at the possibility of foul play, though again, there's no evidence. The two friends he hiked with were longtime companions, well-vetted, cooperative with authorities, and devastated by his loss. What lingers is the question: how can someone vanish so thoroughly, so cleanly, in a place with open visibility and search resources ready within hours? The Grand Canyon is vast, 277 miles long, with walls that drop more than a mile in places. Temperatures fluctuate wildly. Shadows conceal deep ravines, and water, the one resource every hiker needs, is scarce and unpredictable. Many underestimate it. Floyd didn't. His case is one of just a handful in Grand Canyon history where a hiker has vanished without a trace. Park officials say that while missing person reports aren't uncommon, most are resolved quickly. Floyd stands out not just because of his preparedness, but because of the sheer silence that followed. His family still holds out hope, not necessarily that he's alive, but that one day someone will find something. A shoe, a camera. Something to confirm what happened on that day. They've spoken openly about the torment of ambiguous loss, the kind of grief that has no closure. It's a weight that doesn't lift. Years have passed. Nature has reclaimed much of the area where the search once unfolded. The wind blows over Kelly Tank just as it did the day Floyd disappeared. The rocks remain still, and the silence speaks volumes. Some mysteries are loud, filled with conflict, suspects, and sudden twists. This isn't one of those. This is the kind that creeps in slowly, the kind that settles like dusk over a canyon, the kind that reminds us how little control we have in places where nature still rules. Floyd E. Roberts III wasn't reckless. He didn't ignore the warnings. He didn't stray from his values. He simply went for a walk and never came back. If there's a lesson in his story, perhaps it's this: preparation doesn't always guarantee safety. Knowledge doesn't make you immune to risk. Even the most careful, most experienced people can fall through the cracks, sometimes literally. And sometimes, as in Floyd's case, the earth doesn't give them back. To this day, hikers pass through that region of the Grand Canyon, unaware of the mystery that unfolded nearby. Few know his name. Fewer know his story. But for those who do, the canyon will never be the same. If you know anything, if you were in the area of Kelly Tank on June 17, 2016, or saw something that didn't sit right even years later, it's not too late. Sometimes the smallest detail, the thing you didn't think mattered, turns out to be the one that solves everything. And if nothing else, remember his name. Floyd E. Roberts III, a man who respected the land, who walked into the wilderness with purpose, and who, in the end, became part of its mystery. On the morning of August 22, 2021, around 11 a.m., Arturo and Veronica left Hermit Creek Camp. Their plan was straightforward: a day hike into the canyon and back. Their supplies were minimal, just water, some snacks, and the easy confidence daylight brings. For hours, they followed the dusty switchbacks, descending deeper into the quiet canyon, the distant sound of the Colorado River barely audible. By late morning, Arturo began to slow down, his muscles cramped, tightening in the arid heat. When they finally reached the canyon floor, sometime around 10 a.m., it became clear he was in distress. The midday sun was already punishing. Veronica made a difficult choice: continue upward, reach the rim, and find help. Arturo insisted she go. So she went. Veronica climbed toward the rim, her body fighting her every step. Her clothes were soaked with sweat, clinging tightly. Her water ran low. She spent that night near a spring, alone, her fear echoing with each footstep in the darkness. The next morning, exhausted but resolute, she refilled her Camelback, ate what little she had, and finally reached park personnel. The alert was issued: 2 hikers overdue. One had returned, the other still missing. Arturo remained below, isolated, muscles locked, daylight fading fast. Aerial searches launched at dawn on Monday, August 23rd. Rangers swept Hermit Trail and then expanded into Monument Creek Drainage and the Tonto Trail. 6 12-person ground teams moved methodically along ridges and cliffs. Helicopters hovered above. Radios buzzed with updates. Your mind goes to Arturo. Where is he lying? Can he move? Can he hear them searching? Descriptions came in sharp detail. 5'10", 185 pounds, gray hair, brown eyes, blue shirt, black athletic shorts, Nike shoes, and a dark backpack. You can picture it, and still, the canyon is vast, and details alone can't breach its silence. 24 hours passed. The sun blazed. The wind rose, unsettling gravel across the path. Crews kept searching, but the canyon gave up nothing. Then, at around 2 p.m. on Tuesday, August 24th, a voice crackled over the radio. Subject located. Breezy Point, Hermit Trail. Alive. A helicopter had spotted him near Breezy Point, perched on a ledge narrow as thread against the sky. He was weak. He couldn't walk. But he was breathing. He had survived. Rescuers airlifted him, brought him to the rim, and then to a hospital. No fanfare, no dramatics, just quiet, relieved rescue. The National Park Service later confirmed he was in stable condition. His wife, Emily, tearfully called it a miracle he was alive, according to Fox 10 Phoenix. The family's gratitude rippled through news reports. But beneath the relief was something deeper, the truth of a canyon that humbles even the strongest. A place where you can be minutes from safety or from tragedy. The canyon's moods shift in seconds. Heat becomes chill. Calm becomes wind. Hikers often misjudge distances, miscalculate water, underestimate solitude. One small decision, they're just cramps, I'll push through, can flip everything. Veronica later said they'd never attempt such a hike again without being fully prepared. Extra water, warmer layers, contingency plans. Her voice trembled, not just from relief, but from understanding, the kind that only experience carves into you. Arturo wasn't rescued by a dramatic rope drop. There was no epic sunset standoff. Instead, it was a quiet spot, a watchful eye in the sky, and a steady lift. Still, what he endured fills the silence with awe. Arturo isn't a superhero or a legend. He's just a man who went a bit too far, and in doing so, brushed against the edge of human limits. His story doesn't end with a clear-cut lesson like always be prepared. Instead, it leaves lingering questions. How often do we overestimate our own strength? How many times do we press forward alone when we should pause, ask for help, or turn back? And why does a quiet rescue feel so profound, while the canyon stays unmoved? Arturo's story reflects something familiar. He faced vast space with ordinary tools: water, endurance, hope. His strength wasn't about distance covered. It was in the stillness, the waiting, the will to hold on. He returned to his family, changed, and with him he brought the memory of 2 nights in the Grand Canyon, a memory that reaches something quiet and eternal in anyone who's ever wandered. So tonight, as you think back, consider this. Every journey has its edge. We walk it daily, through forests or freeways, routines or risks. Most of us never step into a canyon, but we all encounter moments where we must choose, go forward, wait, or ask for help. Arturo's story doesn't end in miracle alone. It ends in awareness, in respect, in the realization that the world, like the canyon, offers beauty and danger in the same breath. His return teaches us, survival doesn't always come from beating nature. Sometimes it comes from honoring our own boundaries. And when those limits shimmer, fragile as canyon light, we remember, waiting, reaching out, and being present. Sometimes that's enough to bring us safely home.